Evening, everybody. We're just about to get going. Thanks for your patience. Uh, if you didn't catch it, the tasting order, I will put it into the chat. There we go. Meeting group chat. There we go. Hope you're all having a good Tuesday evening. Oh, actually, it turned out a little better than it looked like a few minutes ago. So, welcome everybody. We've got a pretty baller signatory tasting tonight. I have to admit, I completely forgot that we had put the 25-year in this tasting. I thought the height. I mean, Evan, I know the irony of this is that we looked at the samples a few days ago, gave you the order,
That was a few days ago, though.
like literally just a few days ago. But attention span of a gnat at times. So great tasting tonight. Before we go too far in it, though, do want to give a shout out to a tasting that we've got coming up on Friday, Lockley Distillery, featuring their new 5-year-old, which is excellent. Certainly encourage you to check it out. We got a lot of tastings coming up. Glengarry, Glenrothes, which Evan and I are extremely proud of our collaboration on the type artwork and everything for. It's a pretty baller lineup. Hopefully you'll come around. Some of you will come around to buying tickets because there's a couple of really old bottlings of Glengarry in there and a preview of an SMWS release I don't think we're going to see until the fall. I could go on, but there are going to be a bunch of new tastings put on, or at least a couple new tastings put on tomorrow. And they're built around some new products that are arriving that will also be announced tomorrow. But I'll give you a sneak peek on one of them. It's a 10-year-old Loch Lomond cask that we bottled that is excellent value, $108, single cask strength, single malt. It might just be better than the Loch Lomond we did last year. I just did a little side-by-side this afternoon. So check that out. Evan, anything else we should, while we're killing time waiting for stragglers, mention?
Well, I'll chime in on the Loch Lomond because the first one, from what I recall, I really enjoyed it. It's got this great creamy, slightly ashy note to it, tons of vanilla and custard notes, and then the new one just brings in the fruit, some really nice fruit notes that show up on it. That really impressed me. That the first one did not have, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, it did have some fruit, but I think the other one was so toasty and so spicy that
Yeah.
you could be forgiven for not picking it up in comparison. They both have this really nice kind of waxy mouthfeel to them.
hmm
But the fruits on the new one are like orchard, citrus, melons, and like lots of it. So, Signatory, Evan, you've been
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. I that was a really fun meeting at Signatory because I love telling the story about going there, and we're walking around and I'm getting some photos of the stream slash rapids, small rapids that flow through the distillery property. And then this guy just like blows by on this forklift, getting a bunch of hauling bags of grain back and forth, like big bags, like the grow bag or the dirt bags that you can order now to have dropped off at your place, like that size of loads of grains for them to take up to the distillery and use. And and it turned out to be the owner of Signatory that was
And he
driving the
nearly ran
forklift.
you over.
Yep. But he's an interesting character. Andrew Symington, if I remember correctly, is his
Yeah.
name, and he uh, he did get off the forklift eventually and say hello and chatted with us and so on and so forth once we were in the tasting room. But he loves playing with his toys from the looks of it, and doesn't just like sit back and count money. He's in the thick of things, which is really cool.
He is definitely not a man who's not afraid to get his hands dirty, which
hmm
you have to respect. I think people have said previously he's happier making whiskey than he is talking about it or showing people around. And he even
hmm
like they used to do distillery. They used to be the most trafficked distillery in Scotland. I think at one point they hit like 120,000 visitors in a year.
Yeah.
And they were clearly just getting in the way of his tractor. And so that had to go. But yeah, no, interesting
Yeah.
company. And it has to be said, a fairly old one too, by the standards of independent bottlers. This is a company that is now in its 36th year, if I'm correct. I think we've got a few 35th anniversary releases coming later this year that we've placed an order for. And I mean, other than Gordon MacPhail, Evan, can you think of another independent baller that we've had more old, insane whiskey bottlings from?
No, like there's definitely some out there like Whiskey Agency and stuff that gets some stuff from the sometimes the late 80s and the early to mid 90s, but Symington and Signatory stocks seem to go beyond that quite a bit in some cases, which is really, really cool. So what came first, Andrew? For Andrew Symington, was it Edderdour
There's
or
no
Signatory?
it was Signatory. And he didn't buy, and while we're on this, and I know you're all probably getting thirsty, so feel free to go ahead and dig into that Inchgower. We'll talk about it in a quick second. But these are actually the photos from the day Evan and I were there. I have to go
Yep.
back to my Instagram to follow them. There's the forklift that nearly ran Evan over. It turns out it also had casks on it at one
Yep.
point in time. Beautiful little distillery. He acquired Signatory acquired Edinburgh, and I believe it was either late 1999 or early 2000. And the interesting thing, I know this, we're going off topic here. Edinburgh means or translates in Scots Gaelic to the place where waters meet, which is ironic, or not really ironic, maybe more appropriate, because a month after Andrew bought the distillery, they had a dreadful flood that caused a lot of damage. And fortunately, their insurance policy had taken effect something like a week before the flood, or they probably would have been in a spot of trouble. This is formerly the smallest distillery in Scotland. These photos are actually from their new distillery. They built a second whole distillery at the back of the site behind their warehousing. And one of the cool things about it, like Signatory Edinburgh has a lot of dunnage warehousing, but you'd never know it's there because they've built it kind of into this tight little valley. And since 2000, the brands, I mean, they've been tied together quite a lot. But the interesting thing is Edinburgh's quality from about the 2000 distillation year on seems to have been getting better and better. And I think a big part of that, there's Andrew Symington right there. A lot of that has to do with the fact that they started purchasing better casks, in particular better sherry casks. And both Signatory and Edinburgh are brands that, for me, in the last 10 years especially, have really been on the ascendant. Like the quality seems to be getting better. The prices are going up, but I think they're also a company that has not raised its prices as dramatically or as quickly as a lot of others, and certainly not as quickly as it could have. Could have been a lot more aggressive, especially with the younger whiskeys, which I guess is a good segue into this Inchgower, which is batch strength balling, 48.2%, 12 years, matured in Oloroso Sherry, distilled in 2011. And I'll pop it up on screen here for you. This is my first time trying this. I haven't had it yet. We only bought a handful of cases. Inchgower is a distillery we don't see a ton of. You know, we've got a cask of Inchgower right now from Berry Brothers that's from a sherry, but this does have quite a nutty, dried fruit chocolate thing going on there on the nose.
Well, I wanted to talk about that we don't see a lot of it angle too, because Inchgower seems to be and it's something I've noticed over the last probably about year or so. One of those distilleries that one doesn't get showcased as single malt at all, really by its ownership. But also partially because of that, seems to go in cycles where we see like this dry period where you don't see any Inchgower releases from independent bottlers or what have you. And then all of a sudden it'll pop up again and you'll get 2 or 3 or sometimes 6 or 7 or 8 releases from different independent bottlers over the period of a year and a half or 2 years. And Inchgower for me is kind of in the midst of that right now. We have our own single cask Inchgower from Berry Brothers and Rudd. We've started seeing it pop up once or twice from the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society. I think there have been one or two from like Ardmore and a few other indies as well. But it's one of those distilleries for me where I'm still trying to pinpoint and sort of figure out what its style is, because I just have not had enough of it.
To me, and I mean, this goes back a long time, because I remember when I got started in the industry 20 years ago, there was a lot more Inchgower available independently then. We would even see the odd official bottling. But one of the things that really stood out to me at that time was that it had a bit of a meaty profile, but it was also a little bit salty. And the salty element makes sense because the distillery is right next to the coast. It's a coastal distillery. It doesn't, from the standpoint of maturation, because like most distilleries, I think very little of the Inchgower actually gets matured on the coast. This comes as a big surprise to a lot of you, but like Talisker doesn't mature on the island of Skye. It's trucked to central Scotland as spirit, filled into casks. Maybe 100 odd casks mature on the Isle of Skye, so the tourists have something to see when you go visit the distillery. But I would say close to half of Scotland's legacy distilleries, the one that have opened before 2000, don't mature whiskey on site. I'd say there's almost fewer that do not, or there's fewer that do than do not. Like, Lagavulin and Kalila, like very little of either of those whiskeys get matured on island because they just don't have the warehousing.
Yeah.
This is it. There is like a salted licorice thing, salted caramel going
Yeah.
on those.
Yeah, I would say salted caramel or like a salted butterscotch note. The Berry Brothers one we have seems to have a earthy spiciness, almost bordering into peat, from what I recall, which is a little bit quirky for the distillery as well. But and I've had a society bottle that had a bit of that too.
It's got a on the palate, it's got a profile that reminds me of some like strange mezcals. Like I'm trying to think, like, I don't know, like a Toba-Siche or something like that. It's got a really funky sort of note. And I don't know if it's the distillate or if it's actually the sherry cask.
I'm going to go in a slightly different direction to you and say that this reminds me of the Lincoln County process, where it's got this burnt sugar maple note to it, and almost like a backbone that's created with that.
You can see that.
That's really interesting.
I
definitely agree on the nuttiness. Yeah, totally.
Well, it also could be my dinner that I just had before. We won't go into details on that, but
yeah. Faint notes of pizza pockets.
No, Beyond Salisbury does not work. The wife's a pescatarian, so we try these things from time to time. It did not really work out tonight. Well, I quite like the Inchgower, nice starting point.
Yeah.
Decent price. This is part of a new range. I didn't really focus too much on that, but it's part of their for some of these companies, it gets harder to do single cask bottlings. And I think this is a way of Signatory being able to do a slightly larger volume, small batch run, bottled at a higher proof than their standard fare, which is 46%. But sharp packaging too. I kind of like the red and black, and especially with the sherry cask whiskey.
And definitely goes more into what you were talking about earlier with them having some really good sherry casks and lots of sherry casks where they seem to have a very good line on getting sherry casks versus other distilleries and independent bottlers in the industry.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this comes down to relationships, consistency. I would, based on my dealings with him, assume that Andrew is a fairly old school businessman that makes relationships, and you stay with that relationship until it's broken. But until that point in time, you don't, like, it's business as usual, and you foster and nurture that relationship over a long period of time.
Yeah.
Interestingly, though, Symington stepped back a bit from the business. I believe he still owns half, but his German importer, I think might be Kirsch Imports now, is a 50% owner of the distillery and the independent bottling
Oh,
line.
wow.
And the
Cool.
sad thing is, it's not likely that we're going to see a single cask from Kensington anymore of Signatory, because they won't send samples. They're happy to bottle us a
Mhm.
cask. We don't get to try it first. So, which doesn't really work, but what are you going to
Yeah.
do? There's still lots of other people out there to do business with. Uh, should we move on to the Linkwood, the so-called dark sherry Linkwood?
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting choice on keeping the old livery and not going with the new on this one.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the criteria is. I would expect that, you know, because to be honest, I don't dislike this either. Like, I think,
Yeah.
especially with the dark liquid, that white label looks sharp. But this is packaging that they haven't changed in about 15 years. Uh, and this is a good example of, I think, when Signatory started doing something a little different, which was not just buying parcels of whiskey, but actually filling it into their own casks, sort of
Yeah.
taking a page out of Gordon MacPhail's book. And it's one of the reasons why we've seen such impressive, even young bottlings of Signatory in the last
Hmm.
while, is that they're kind of becoming masters of their own destiny. Having been in their warehouses many times, they do buy things in bulk, but they're being more specific about how they were matured, and it's paid off down the road. There's not a lot of independent bottlers with young, 12, 10, 12, 13, 14-year-old heavily sherried single malt out there that
Hmm.
hasn't just been rapidly finished as opposed to matured. So this 11-year-old, on the sales sheet, they called it dark sherry. It doesn't say anything on the bottle, but dark sherry
Hmm.
to sell it. So we kept with it. And what do we think of this one, Evan? At Linkwood's,
Well, it's a really cool nose, like right on the nose. It's a combination of nibs and Elmer's glue right now for me, and maybe a little bit of uh, fresh pressed apple juice in there along with it. But interesting choice on the Linkwood to go with Big Sherry, because that is very much Gordon and MacPhail's MO there. Uh, but
it's
they've done a tremendous job, at least based on the nose here.
Linkwood is interestingly, it's a whiskey like Glentalker's that for me does well both naked and heavily sherried. And there's not a lot of distilleries that do. What I love about this is just how sort of soft and floral it is, despite those big sherry tones. Uh, Linkwood for me, and I get it almost every time, and I get it in this one too, has like this pillowy softness to it, or fluffiness.
Hmm.
I don't know how else to describe it. It's probably a floral note, but for me, this has that nice pillowy soft note. It's got this nice, lovely, rich chocolate, like a
Hmm.
really, a heavily ground chocolate, very clean, very pure, but like almost in its liquid form. And some nice jammy berry fruits too, like strawberry
Yeah,
and raspberry jam.
cherries in there as well. Oddly reminds me of a few ex-bourbon Scotch Malt Whiskey Society Auchentoshes we've had recently, where they go into the cherry and cotton candy notes.
Mm. Really rich on the palate, tons of chocolate, bit of leather, some nice fruits in there too, but still floral.
Hmm.
Like, despite that big, robust backbone of sherry, that soft floral element has kind of maintained itself in there, which is really surprising.
Yeah, the palate kind of reminds me that pillowiness of like a strawberry shortcake with whipped cream.
Mhm. No, that's a good note. I like that one. Um, Evan, I just realized, since I have my Instagram open to that page, from our trip to Edradour, I've also got it open for a trip to a much larger distillery at the end of the tasting. So,
Ooh, good
but don't
call.
want to get too far ahead of ourselves on that. Uh,
Hmm.
is that boutique Inchgower really marked down 40%? I believe it is. We're trying to get rid of some stuff that's taken forever. Turns out people who like 44-year-old and boutique Inchgower, I'm trying to remember which one the Inchgower is. Oh, I know which one that is. Yes, that one is also that one is marked down. There were some other ones that we had marked down quite deeply during the sale. But yeah, don't want to lose my train of thought here. If that's what the discount says, Jeff, that's what the discount is until it's
Yep.
gone. Have at her.
$69
Yeah.
for a 14-year-old.
And there's an interesting side note on that. It's Inchgower is Scots Gaelic for Island of the Goats. But anyway, that was one whiskey ago. We got to focus on Linkwood here. Evan, you got to keep me on track. You don't
That's
have Cam
my
yet.
job.
Well,
Yeah.
he hasn't been here for a while.
So what do you prefer between Inchgower and Linkwood so far?
Oh man, Linkwood.
I'd say so too.
It that Linkwood is gorgeous. Really
Yeah.
well done. I don't know that could have matured much longer. I think it would have gotten over oaked, but
Yeah.
drinks really well. 46%, decent drinking strength. Might have been a little bit brighter at a higher ABV, but I think it works.
Mm-hmm.
Evan, we're on to your favorite distillery next.
Yeah, one of my favorites. I think I do have a liking of this distillery more than you do, and more than Sean and Kurt do, typically. It's still a cheg, but it's up there. So this is a 100 proof version from Signatory, the Signatory 100 proof Ardmore, bottled at the 100 British proof at 57.1% alcohol from 2010.
I've always loved these bottlings, and because people in Canada and the US, proof is just a generic doubling of the
Yep.
alcohol. So if it's 40% alcohol, it's 80 proof. But the old British proofing meant proving your alcohol, proving your strength. And the way they did this was by essentially mixing the gunpowder with alcohol. And if they lit a match and it exploded as opposed to burned, you proved your alcohol. It was of proof. But if
Mm-hmm.
it just burned, then it was below proof. Now, obviously, there's so many other variables that could have played into that. It was not exactly a high-tech system, but this is well before the time where they had precise hydrometers and things like that you could
Yeah.
use to measure alcohol.
Metric. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
what can we say about this Inchgower? This is did I put it
or
up on
Ardmore, sorry, Ardmore.
or Ardmore? Sorry, I didn't
Yeah.
put this up on the screen yet, did I?
No.
So this is the first 100 proof bottling that we've had from them come through the store. Distilled 2010, matured in First Fill Oloroso Sherry butts for 13 years, bottled at 57.1%. Kind of like the label. I believe these came without tubes.
Yep.
Someone was explaining to me, it was actually the guy from Torvig, it was Bruce from Torvig, was saying that he thought that within the next 5 to 10 years, they would outlaw all boxes and tubes on whiskeys under a certain age or price point as being unnecessary. So maybe Signatory is ahead of the curve on that. I know
And that
I'm
makes
not
me
sure
wonder
what
if
you
it'll
thought.
be an SWA regulation, perhaps in the pipes.
Possibly. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
to an extent, some of it makes sense. Like if you've ever
Totally.
broken down those cardboard tubes with the metal tops, I mean, I'm assuming the tops and bottoms are both recyclable as well as the cardboard, and I separate them, but there's a lot of waste there.
Mm-hmm.
On to the whiskey though, Evan. What are your thoughts on this? You're the Ardmore man in house
Man,
here.
this is, I don't know, like I almost need another like hyper aggressive Ardmore to put next to it because it seems pretty tame, but it's also kind of checking all the boxes for what you'd expect from sherried Ardmore. Like bacon bits drizzled in maple syrup with some chocolate on the side, is how I describe the nose, and then palate gets a lot of that, but it does have some Dutch licorice notes to it as well. Really nice, actually Dutch and black licorice, sort of a nice note on the finish there for me. It's showing really well.
It's got it has a really nice balance of peat, sherry, malt, Ardmore,
Yep.
I think what I don't like about it is that a lot of Ardmore, especially if it's young, especially if it's from a tired old cask, gets very farmy and very
Yeah.
barnyardy,
Again, kind of mezcal like
but
in a lot
not
of
in a way that
cases.
I find pleasant. I mean, I find
Hmm.
it needs time to like polish off the rougher edges of the spirit, but sherry seems to help. And I think, we've said this before, and I've talked about in tastings. The best Ardmores I've had have by and large been Gordon MacPhail. They've been almost all from sherry. And I think it's because that spirit really needs um,
Hmm.
a little overlay on top of it, because when it's refill cask or straight bourbon, I just don't find it works as well for me.
Yeah, that I can see that how you're coming at that, and it makes sense too with Ardmore being such a like a workhorse distillery where most of it's there to
Mhm.
produce whiskey for teachers, essentially.
Yeah.
But it probably for a lot of years and even now isn't laid down on the primo casks necessarily. So when you do get to see it in something where the cask has an aggression to stand up to the spirit itself. When it marries together, it can be fantastic, just like our
Yeah.
G&M Ardmore that we have right now.
Which is hanging around behind me there somewhere.
Hmm.
Uh, I did try to arrange a visit for Ardmore for a couple weeks from now. They have rebuffed me for the third time. I even tried to get Gordon MacPhail to pull some strings, and to no avail. It looks like it's
Yeah,
not going to happen. But
they don't really want to make people realize after 126 years of operation that Ardmore doesn't actually exist.
yeah, I've actually heard from people that it's actually a very interesting distillery.
It
Um,
would be a cool one to visit.
yeah, as long as I don't have to sit through the formal tour. I literally just want to walk through, ask questions, take a few photos, and leave. That is
Hmm.
my ideal distillery tour these days. Unless it's got epic drams, in which case I'm happy to sit around at the end for epic drams. I
Yeah.
just don't want the 145-minute spiel to get to that point. So
Hmm.
ADD or something to that
Yeah.
effect.
This one's nice. It's got a really nice sort of spicy, dry but juicy note to it on the finish too that I really enjoy.
Yeah, it's nice. But go back to that Linkwood now, man. Oh, that Linkwood owns the first three, in
Oh,
my opinion.
yeah.
The Inchgower is starting to open up and become a bit more interesting.
That
But
that glue note I was getting on the Linkwood is going more waxy now, and I still say it just nibs all over the place.
yeah, the Nips is a good one. All right. What have we got next? I think we've got some mysterious Orkney malt.
Yeah.
Uh, where are we here? Orkney 18 year. We are nearly out of this batch. I don't know if we're going to get this one again. Um, I think we did order a bit more of this. You know, compared to the Macallan 18 or the Speyside 18, this one's maybe not as good of value just on an outward basis. Like, what does Macallan 18 go for versus Highland Park 18? But I don't know that comparing this to Highland Park 18 is even a fair comparison, because cask strength, matured 18 years in first fill
Yeah.
sherry. Uh,
That's not to denigrate official bottlings more than I often do, but that is a bottling that's nowhere near as good as it was 10 or 15 years back.
yeah, that's a fair point. Um, we've had this batch once before. In fact, we tasted this batch in a tasting just before Christmas. I think that was sherry bombs and other dark drams or something like that, I think was what we called that one. And this was the star of that tasting. We were really fortunate to get an
Hmm.
additional top-up allocation of this whiskey. Because this is to me, this is more reminiscent of what Highland Park used to be than what it is today.
Absolutely. It's it's almost a little bit muted on the nose versus the first three, actually the Inchgower, the Linkwood, and the Ardmore for me. But what I do get out of there is like some really cool Highland Park notes where you got that slightly smoldering peat in the background, a little bit of a drier sheet going on there right now for me, and then just a bit of that smoky ashiness and the typical honey heather notes and some apples in there too for me right now.
Yeah, I think what I like about it is the palate on it is what
Hmm.
you would hope for a whiskey of this age, having had time to mellow a little bit, having had time to like soften out, become a bit more delicate. And I think that's exactly what we got from this.
Sam says peach mango juice on the nose, and I get that on the palate on the finish. It almost has that thickness and that viscosity of going into like a puree.
Well, and the peat is buttery, it's soft. I would even say that underneath the sherry, you're starting to see some more exotic, almost tropical fruits coming out as
Hmm.
well. It's just got a glow, like a gorgeous profile to it. Really, really nice drinking dram.
Hmm.
And talk about the ABV for a second. I mean, what are we at here? We're at 55.8. There's like no edges to this thing. Like,
No, no, it's got spice, but it's not aggressively hot or aggressively spicy or alcoholic. It's that is a wicked dram.
mm, yeah. I was scanning through my photos to see if I could find the photos from the trip where I took my parents to Highland Park and my dad and I did the tasting of everything up to, I know we did the 40 year. I can't remember if they also poured the 50 year for us too, but it's a beautiful distillery. It's unfortunately closed this year. I think it's closed for the whole year, because they're doing some major refurbishments and upgrades to the distillery, presumably so that they can charge you more.
Hmm.
Would be my guess. So it's sort of the Edrington way. Or either that or they have to set up an area suitable for a Cirque du Soleil performance,
That's
which
right. That's right.
which it relates to the last distillery, but we're not there yet.
Yeah,
Um,
they've got to build a new distillery sort of into the island. That'll just be a bunch of craggy rocks on top.
mhm. Maybe reconstruct stone by stone a Neolithic site,
Yeah,
for the what do you call them? Circus performers to dance through.
that's right. And then you exit through the gift shop.
Is there any other way?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, back to whiskey.
Oh,
Um, are you already onto that Glenrothes 7 or?
no, I'm falling in love with that Orkney. It's got some
Yeah,
great sort of chocolate and coconut notes now on the finish.
I was struggling to move past it myself. So the next one that we're on to is a 28-year-old Glenrothes, part of what they call the Symingtons choice. So this isn't a range of their higher end or, you know, premium cask offerings that they put out. This one did quite well, but I mean, we didn't really know. I don't think we've had a chance to try this one yet.
No,
Uh,
on the nose right off the hop for me. Maybe it'll be different out of your blending glass there, but uh, it goes a little bit acetone heavy, like it's going into these big apple notes, which is surprising to me. It's not what I was expecting from Glenrothes necessarily.
I could see that. I could see like I remember when my mom used to make crab apple jam in the fall or crab apple
Hmm.
jelly. And that point where like she's got the apples and they're sort of macerated and starting to drain. Um, for me, I was going to go more. It's got like a nice treacle toffee pudding uh, note to it, and just loads of dark fruit, but not in that dark prune. More like sort of sweet dried raisins and figs.
Yeah, not into dumpy territory, which Glenrothes often does in sherry for me.
Yeah. I know I've mentioned many times, and apologies if I haven't put this up on the screen yet. I don't think I had. Uh, Glenrothes and sherry for me is so hit and miss.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
and I think part of that is just the volume that they produced. Uh, and there was an era in Glenrothes where there was just a lot of really sulfured casks coming out of
Hmm.
it. Uh, this has got none of that. This is just, it's so fresh, so fruity and soft on the nose. 51.0% it looks like. Um, oh no, sorry. Yeah, 55.1. What do we got here? It says 51 on the label. The bottle appears to say 55.0. Uh, I think we have the 55.0 one would be my guess, because that looks like Sean's photo.
Yeah, that's I think it's got the heat to be 55 on the palate.
First Fill Oloroso Sherry. And what's more, so much chocolate, like
Hmm.
nibs and like dark baker's chocolate.
I think for me it does, and this is not in an off-putting manner. It does go a little bit savory, and there might be a hint of sulfur and the sharpness on the palate, but um, I kind of like it because again, it doesn't go into that like just flabby, dumpy style that Glenrothes sometimes gets, especially when it's cut down to 43% alcohol, unfortunately.
I don't know that I get any sulfur, but I think I can see, like, a lot of times people will get like
Hmm.
some of those really drying, nutty sherry notes
Yeah.
and associate them with sulfur, because quite often a lot of, especially Glenrothes, those sulfured Glenrothes sherry casks were also that dry, nutty style of sherry.
Yeah.
For me, I
Well,
actually
it
find it
does.
really clean.
Mhm. It does have spice wise like that, like a pretty big gingery heat to it, which is sometimes connotated to Glenrothes. Also, a little bit of like a seasoning salt I find in there.
Yeah, I can see that. It's got like cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg, but going into like celery salts or seasoning salt.
Hmm.
Some nice tobacco tones. This is lovely sherry.
Yeah.
I don't know that I could pick this out blind as a Glenrothes, but
No, it's a lot more lithe than your typical Glenrothes.
yeah, and sadly, a distillery I've probably not been to in more than a decade now. That was back when Barry Brothers and Rudd was running Glenrothes, and Ronnie Cox, the brand ambassador, would always say that, in his posh British way, that Glenrothes always has oranges and geraniums were in
Hmm.
every bottling of Glenrothes. And the thing is, I can see a bit of that sort of stemmy floral note to it, um, even with the sherry being as bold as it is.
Hmm. I'm going back through the lineup right now, and I'm just on the HP again, and man, what a gorgeous nose. It's like Ovaltine and Baker's chocolate and hot chocolate mix right now on the nose.
Well, the Inchgower is banana bread for me, like with a really like
Ooh,
heavy crust on it.
yeah. Yeah, and oatmeal cookies.
Yeah, the Linkwood is like oatmeal raisin, or sorry, oatmeal chocolate chip.
Hmm.
The Ardmore is starting to get a little farmy. It's like a kid, dropped his hickory sticks into, like, I don't know, onto the side of a wet horse or something.
Hmm. Yeah, more like plasticine and Play-Doh in there as well on the Ardmore for me.
Oh, the Orkney is just so soft now on the nose.
Yep.
Well, final thoughts on the Glenrothes round one. We will go back and do another one before we move on
Well,
to the.
can see why it's sold out because 28-year-old big sherry Glenrothes, that's quite drinkable, and for far less than the official 25s are.
But it's really turning, like, it's really going salty through me now, like really salty Dutch licorice,
Yep.
uh, over salted caramel. Um, as good as it is, and it is good, I think I would have leaned more towards an Orkney for the price. Um,
Yeah, if this was a society bottling, you could have called it barrel aged Caesar, because it even has the Worcester sauce note. The Leon Perrins coming out there now.
Worcester, Evan. It's Worcester sauce.
Worcester.
Uh, all right, we're going to Macallan town, folks. We've got an undisclosed Macallan, and then we have a fully declared Macallan, an 18 and a 25, but they're not the OBs. Uh,
Hmm.
so before we dig into that, or maybe you can start nosing it. I did promise that I'd pulled up the Instagram post from Evan and my visit to Macallan. Now, I have to say, like, that tour was an incredible tour, and very eye-opening. You can see Evan and
Yep.
I here standing in front of the old new
Yep.
Macallan distillery. I've been to 3 different Macallan distilleries in the last 20 years. The most current one, there's Easter Elke's house. The most current one is this one here, with the subterranean distillery. And I
Yeah.
have to say, I've got
If you zoom in there and look closely, you can actually see the Teletubbies coming over one of the rooftops.
that's right. I will say, as much as the experience for me was in many ways off-putting, I will
Mhm.
admit the distillery is absolutely stunning. From an
It's
architectural standpoint,
gorgeous. Yeah.
it is an incredible building. This is their prestige wall or something. Uh, this is their mash tun, which is insane. I think this is the biggest in the world now. They have this concept of pods. Each of these pods, I believe, has 4 pairs of stills, and around those you have their associated washbacks. From a technical standpoint, the equipment is similar to the other prior Macallan distilleries. I believe they had 3 of these pods
Yeah.
each in operation, and then the mash tun. But where the mash tun is, there was a giant hole in the floor where they could. There was the original new. No, the I think that might have been
That's the old, isn't it?
that's the old, and then
Yeah.
there was the new old, and then there's the new Macallan distilleries. There's a shot of the building there again. The surprising thing was that they built this thing so that they could actually expand it again. They could effectively double it from,
Yeah.
I think it's making about 16 million liters a year now. They could double it up to 32. But there was a hole in the floor where that other mash tun would go if it was ever needed. And the scale of this thing was just kind of astounding.
Yeah.
But none of it was about the art of making whiskey. It was all about kind of the ego and prestige of the brand. And I remember leaving, I was angry because I kind of felt like
Mhm.
it was this giant monument to Macallan's hubris and ego.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
every,
I totally agree. And I felt the same way. Like it was amazing to think about doing that tour versus doing the tour at Springbank because you could not get like a greater divide essentially between the two distilleries. And it is an absolutely beautiful building as Andrew said, but the downside and the sad part of it is that you could house anything in that building. Like there's nothing that's like and not every distillery has to scream, oh, this is an old distillery from the 1800s, blah blah blah. But there was nothing that gave it character. Like it was a monument to itself, and that was its character essentially.
yeah, it's sad. Some friends of mine who were over there for Spirit of Speyside this month just wanted to drive up to actually see the distillery, and they don't even let you do that anymore unless you have a tour booked and paid for. They don't even let you drive onto the site, and
Mhm.
it's sad. I mean, I will admit, I mean, we've done tastings. I think we did one last year with Macallan 18. We've done a couple with the 12, and
Mhm.
the whiskeys are good. Like I have to admit, they're good products, but the prices are outrageous, and I don't believe they're selling the way they you would expect them to be for how rare and how expensive they are. But this is a kind of a cool alternative to that. These Signatory mystery Speyside malts. This one sadly sold out, but I believe we've got a different batch coming. And Symington must have bought a bucket load of these because he's been bottling single casks over and over again. Now, when you look at the cask number here, there's a bit of a backstory on these. I don't think this is liquid that he bought uh, as new make. I think it's a parcel of stock that had been vatted, sold off, and then he put them back into sherry casks to continue maturing. 2005 vintage, First Fill Oloroso Sherry. What have we got here? ABV is it 57%? Is what it looks like here. And yeah, it's an opportunity to get a Macallan 18 at more than 43% and for roughly half the cost of what Macallan 18 itself goes for these days.
Well, the 18, this is great stuff. Like, it's been a while since I've had it, but I can see the through notes between this and the official 18. It does have that sort of like stereotypical character of Macallan of just having that just loads and loads of creamy toffee and butterscotch on the palate. I really like the spice note that the heat, the ABV brings out at the front too. Just so it's not just one note. It's just like a silky and approachable dram.
Well, I think this also shows why Macallan works so well in sherry.
Hmm.
They have their famously small stills. I don't know if any of you guys caught that in that image, but in their pairs of stills, one of the stills is unusually small, but the way it's designed and the way the line arm works, and I've actually brought that photo up here one more time. I'll just put it on screen. Means that they create a fairly heavy spirit. The angle on the
Hmm.
line arm as well is quite steep. So you can see this is the spirit still, this is the wash still. So very small, very short. And in fact, it's not pairs. Each wash still is paired, I believe, with two spirit stills. That's, I believe, what their configuration looks like. But the shape of the line arm, the design of the still makes a heavier, oilier spirit. Unlike Mortlick or Craigellachie, they're not trying to make a sulfury spirit, but they're making a
Hmm.
heavier, oilier spirit that's going to work well. And that's why I think historically it's worked so well in sherry casks.
Yeah, this is really cool to taste and really cool to see because it's I'm very, very guilty of just writing off Macallan when I see the word or the name in a lot of cases. And like Andrew says, the 12 and the 18, the official bottlings are still good, although you are paying far more for marketing than you will for the whiskey. Uh, but that's my biggest uh issue with Macallan when it comes down to it is like I think it's marketing that's done a fantastic job at creating luxury out of nothing. Is what they've done.
Well, and I think that it's a danger as well too, because
It
by
is. Yep.
declaring and saying that your brand is a luxury brand,
And
you
rare.
have both the
Yep.
luxury end of the market, but then also the consumer end of the market. Or do you just push the consumers out of your realm because they can't afford to pay what you're
Yep.
asking? And what else can you get? I mean, for like Macallan 18 at 800-ish dollars, whatever it is now, like think of what you can get for $800.
Yep.
You could get like 4 bottles of Ben Romick 21 for that price. You
Yeah.
could get a
Well, and
lot.
you're buying something that's meant to be like prestigious and rare from the third largest distillery in Scotland, and just barely the third largest. It could easily be the first largest if they put in another 9 stills, or they could double the size of Glenfiddich and Glenlivet if they turn the lights on their old distillery,
Mhm.
essentially.
No, it's a great whiskey. I like that.
It
Lots of
is.
candied fruit, Christmas cake, some of those classic sherry notes that you used to find in whiskeys a long time ago. Um, yeah, it's a great bottling. I think you mentioned cherries before. It's got like maraschino cherries on the palate for
Yeah.
me. Um, great bottling.
Yeah.
25-year-old Macallan. When's the last time anyone in this tasting had 25-year-old Macallan? Um, I haven't probably had it in 8 to 10 years, would probably be the last time I've had a chance of trying it.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think it'd be probably closer to 15 for me. I actually had a bottle of Macallan 25 at one point. But it was a bottle of Macallan Fire at 25 that was half drank after probably about 5 or 10 years of being open and was smoke tainted from a fire.
oh, well, yeah, that certainly might change the experience a little bit.
Hmm.
I know the last time I tried to sample Macallan 25 was at the Whiskey Show London, and they weren't going to let me try it, even though I was in the industry, unless I paid £100. Like I was going to have to pay £100 try this thing, and I'm like, I sell this thing. You're not going to let me try it? They're like, nope, you got to pay. So anyway, this is bottled under the Symingtons Choice range. 25-year-old Macallan. distilled 97, matured in First Fill Oloroso Sherry, bottled at 54.8%. There's been a few of these casks bottled under the Symington's choice range, and the price on this is creeping up. It's not far off of the distillery bottled 25-year, which I think now goes for about $5,500. But it is better priced, and it is cask strength and a single cask. So kind of a unique selection, and I'm curious to try this one because I have not had 25-year-old Macallan in quite some time.
It's good. It's maybe not as, maybe I got to taste it a little bit more and pay attention to it, but it's not as lengthy and complex as I expected. But I think you can actually get close to this if you put maybe 1/4 of the Linkwood in with Macallan 18 that we have, because it's going into those fruity nib territories again.
Yeah. It's, for me, it's more like a going into like very chocolatey, like chocolate brownies. It reminds me of this girl Rebecca in town here used to make a dark chocolate, a flourless dark chocolate cake, and it reminds me of that. Just like really, really rich, deep cocoa.
Yeah. It does have a really nice, and Jeff is probably going to jump on me for this, but Jeff, I'm going to say Earl Grey on this one note.
Now you will note the 18. I know some people are asking about it. That batch is gone. We are getting a different batch in a few months' time. Well, it could be the same one, but it's more likely going to be a different one. I won't know until the bottles actually arrive. I love the palate on this. It's chocolatey, it's spicy. It reminds me of like dark chocolate infused with like cayenne pepper or chili oil.
Yeah.
Nice fruits, leather, tobacco. I mean, this is a good example of why people really like old Macallan and sherry. The challenge is that hype that's built up around it that just
Yeah.
makes the prices unreasonable.
Yeah, this is a really nice whiskey. I personally think I'd probably take a couple of the 18s over the 25
Well,
from from the Signatory range, but 25 is quite nice.
I mean, that's one of those inevitable dilemmas.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that Linkwood's pretty bloody good too. So like,
Yeah,
some people might be tempted to take 4 of those Linkwoods before they bought a Speyside 18. It all depends on your jam, what you like, what your budget is. So Evan, speed round. I think we should go back. We should make our way through them, see how they've changed. Now the speed round sometimes gets stuck in the mud, but we've kind of been going back and forth a little bit over the course of the
so
tasting.
back to the Inchgower, back to number 1 then.
Yeah. It's like roasting marshmallows on like a beach bonfire.
Yeah, it is going into s'more territory. It's even got the graham cracker in there right now for me.
Really like I really like the salted caramel, that graham wafer note. Nice little bit of marshmallow, soft fruits. It's very malty, but it's got a nice balance to it.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, kind of going into like a chocolate mousse territory right now for me with the graham cracker crust. Back to the Linkwood.
Linkwood, yeah, very chocolatey, quite rich, but still has that nice soft floral note to it too.
I find the purple fruits have kind of blown off a little bit on the nose right now, maybe just against everything else I've had.
Very drinkable, sherried, floral, a little bit fruity, like cranberries and cherries on the palate. Fresh. Your nibs comment from before, Evan, I still got a ton of nibs on the palate with this. And
it's got a nice bit of like a Frangelico and tiramisu on the finish right now for me.
Yeah, I'm getting a little bit of lavender too, or maybe lilac,
Cool.
but quite pretty. Yeah.
That's,
I mean,
what's the price on that one again?
150.
Yeah, that's That's pretty darn good.
Yeah, dollar for dollar, quite good value. All right, Ardmore Town, Evan.
Mm-hmm. More farmy or less farmy?
It's not as farmy now. Now it's more like going into like a barbecue joint. Like I would say,
Yeah.
more like South Carolina barbecue than like Texas or Louisiana.
So that's what is that? A little bit more mustard driven?
I don't really know. I just know from the different scents, depending on if you're going to South Block or Comrie Block or
Yeah. This is more South Block, I would say for sure.
yeah, it's more South Block. I think there's more vinegar would be
Yeah.
more
Yeah, that's a
vinegar.
good call. It does almost have a little bit of a balsamic reduction going on the nose right now, along with those bacon bits and chocolate and maple syrup.
Nice rocky mineral petrichor thing on the Ardmore now. So there you go.
Nice. Good call on the petrichor.
Yeah, Sammy, nice note there. I like the mineral.
It does have a little bit of, along with the petrichor, that fresh asphalt just being laying down.
Our fact checker, Jeff, clarifying it's not South Carolina, it's North Carolina barbecue. Jeff. I knew it was a Carolina. So it's half right.
Yeah.
Or half wrong. Or both. A little bit of ozone too. Almost like a little bit of hot tub time machine going on there.
Yeah.
Okay. It's an Ardmore and I like it, so I think that's a win. I praise. Orkney.
Oh, just milk chocolate and yeah, just full on. You just unwrapped an arrow bar right now.
Yeah, the arrow bar is a good call. It's got that really light, fluffy chocolate note. It's starting to go tropical too. There's like some nice oxalative, and there's some nice fruit, like a bit of kiwi. Ooh.
Dried mango on the palate.
Oh, that's a good palate.
And yellow kiwi, like not the green sour stuff, the sweeter yellow kiwis.
Yeah, it's got some nice tropical notes there, but it's even going to like a little bit of like a tart Jolly Rancher. Nice chocolate, nice caramel, nice balance. Damn, that's I think what I like about the Orkney is that it's not so intense, that the sherry's like it's bold, but it's balanced and it's not overshadowing things.
The distillery character still shows. Yeah.
Yeah, you can get a little bit of that soft peat. You can get a little bit of that salty coastal Orcadian air. All right. Oh, Jeff's correcting us, Evan. We have had old Macallan. We've had 31-year-old SMWS Macallan.
When was a wizard spell? When was that outturn, Jeff? Do you know? I can't say I recall that name, but
Jeff's going to get replaced by AI. I think AI is a lot faster.
Yeah, I think Jeff is AI. That must have been like a mid-February release. It wasn't in an actual outturn, if I remember correctly.
Glenrothes is good. It's a bit one-dimensional though. Like I like it, but I don't know that I like it as much as I like the Orkney.
Jeff, I think you should change your name to ChatGP Jeff.
Yeah, ChatGP Jeff is great. I like that. Getting like a coffee crisp thing from the Glenrothes.
Yeah, I could see that.
More on the palate.
The sort of spicy bite or that gingery hit has softened up that I was getting at the beginning of there.
Yeah, no, it's good. But no Highland Park for me thus far. Speyside, they call it M. Sold out despite the fact Roland wants a bottle. You're too slow, Roland. We're already gone. As I said, though, we are getting more of us Speyside M. I'm just not sure which one. I won't know until it gets here.
Yeah, probably Manic more.
No, it'll still be a Macallan, but just a different cask of Speyside M Macallan. Uh, how's it faring now, Evan, after an hour or so in the glass?
A little bit of like chocolate coated espresso beans right now on the nose for me.
Mhm. I can
Hmm.
see that on the palate. Uh,
Still has that great silky chocolate texture to it.
mhm. Yeah, nice, really nice soft chocolate, lots of dark fruits, um, soft spices, like but soft but like bright, decadent spices towards the finish. Sammy says the Glenrothes got better. Jeff has changed
Hmm.
his name to Chat Jeff PT. Oh, he even improved on it. I like that.
Yeah, I did.
Well done, Jeff. You're gonna have to register that as a social media account before someone else does.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm.
25 is
Oh,
getting good. It's got more of a cigar sort of tobacco note on it.
I'm almost there, but depending on the last one, I think I already know two of my top three. Um,
Hmm.
this will have to be the deciding factor on the last one. Wonder what Kevin's going to be. Is Kevin going to be a different form of AI? Like Kev E3, something
Hmm.
like that? Yeah, there's a lot of tobacco, a lot of leather on the Macallan 25 now.
I gotta say that's still pretty lively whiskey there.
Yeah, it's got a nice balance. Loads of fruit, very silky palate, not over the top. Damn. Sometimes you don't want those expensive bottles to be
Yeah.
as good as they are. Um, but that Macallan 25 is pretty damn good.
Hmm.
Let's trigger the poll. Evan, am I going to do that or are you going to turn that on?
I can do it.
I was going to fire it up. So we'll let everyone have about 4 or 5 minutes to pick your favorites. If you're sharing a video feed tonight, unfortunately, you're going to have to share the polls. Uh, unless you were smart enough to log in on a different device just so that you could vote.
Hmm.
So Evan, while the people are speaking with their mouses, um, what were your favorites tonight? Top three.
Top three. I definitely have a top two. The Orkney is my number one. I just that it's nostalgia almost. Like it reminds me of drinking Highland Park 18 and the old round bottle with the old label. Uh, sorry, round base of the bottle, not when it went into the oval bottles. Uh, at a bar, and just like falling in love with it, with its baked apple pie notes and the honey and heather and the multitude of notes that you get out of it. Just a fantastic dram, this one. Second favorite would be the Linkwood. I think that just that floral note in there, the fruitiness, it just sings like that is, and it's also at a price point where and a style where it's crushable. Like it's not one where you have to take time with it, but it rewards time with it, which is nice. If I'm doing a top three, I am gonna go with the Ardmore. That's like exactly what I want from Ardmore and Sherry at that age. I think it's really well done.
Cool.
How about
Uh,
you?
yeah, those are good picks, Evan. I'm going to go a different direction uh, because I'm spoiled and I'm fancy. You know,
Hmm.
uh, that Macallan 25 is pretty gorgeous. It's hard. If I was voting for value, it would not be in my top three. It would be seven. Like it would have to be seven. Uh, but Yeah, I think that's got to be my top pick. It's just I like the balance in it. It's old school, old sherried whiskey. It's something we don't see it very much of anymore. So begrudgingly, I give it my number one pick. My
Mhm.
number two goes to that Orkney. Like that Orkney is just such good value. I can't believe we still have it. Uh, we probably won't for long. I think there was only 4 or 5 bottles left at most, but such a good bottle, really good value, and great liquid. And I got to give my number three to that Speyside M18. I agree with you.
Oh,
I think Linkwood is good value. I'm not going on value. I'm just going on like if I had a choice to drink tonight, regardless of age, regardless of
mhm.
price, that's how I would go my 1, 2, 3. So um, I'm feeling a bit like a bit like a spoiled wanker here because they're also the three of the four most expensive drams in the tasting. But my value pick would be that the Linkwood and the Ardmore. Actually, both the Ardmore and the Inchgower really grew on me. I don't think I liked them both at first, but I think they both grew on
Mhm.
me over the course of the tasting. And as Sammy said, we're all 100% spoiled wankers. So Evan, how are those poll results looking? Where's the voting at here?
I think we got 18 to 23, so I'll just cap it there.
Well,
Uh,
Barry and Roland are having a gathering, so
nice.
probably busy. They're toasting us though.
Yeah,
Probably didn't vote. Maybe they voted. We'll never
that's
know.
right. Well, so for first favorite of the night, the Macallan 25 Symingtons or Symingtons took half the votes of the 18 votes that were placed at 9.
Mhm.
And then everybody else got either 2 or 1 votes. Everybody else did get a vote though, so there's that. For second favorite of the night, the Macallan 18 and the Signatory Orkney tied at 4 votes each. Um, I I can't disagree with those. Macallan 25 came in third again, so it got the most votes overall. But this was a crazy good sherry lineup. Like it just shows how good Signatory is right now, which is really cool.
Well, I would be so bold as to say that they have the second best range of sherry whiskeys after Gordon MacPhail.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree.
and that includes distilleries. Like I just don't think there's anyone else out there that's bottling consistently things that are as good as these. And I think it says something that for the second time in less than a year, we've done a signatory tasting of almost exclusively sherry,
Yep,
and they're and
absolutely.
um so that's the lineup for tonight. We're not going to drag this one out because of a number of different reasons, but end on a high note. Evan, this was an awesome lineup tonight. Thanks
Yeah,
for
it
being
was.
co-pilot on it. Uh, Everyone, thank you for tuning in on this one. Please consider tuning in for our Loch Lee tasting on Friday. We're really trying to hustle that one out. And Glenn Gary, for the love of God, Evan and
Yeah,
I have so many clever, funny things in that. It should be sold out. Dag
I
nabbit.
know. That's I I can't believe like the creativity of that joke and how well we made it work.
And
Just it's worth your money.
we even found a misspelled Glenrothes to put into the lineup
Yeah.
to be like spot on and perfect.
It's like
But
Signatory did it just for us, just for that tasting.
they must have known. They must have known. Well, listen, everybody, thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Tuesday night. To our friends on the West Coast, condolences. I know you're all having a rough couple of days. Um, it's kind of mixed feelings on this side of the Rockies about what happened last night too. Uh, Regardless, thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you again at the next tasting. And yeah, have a great night.
Take care, guys.